broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.
Welcome to Street MBA, where we discuss entrepreneurship from an evidence-based and practical perspective. Our objective being to create a network of business people who are bringing value to their communities. But what I want to say to you today is allow your quirkiness to thrive. Listen, the thing that makes you who you are is the thing that's going to give you a competitive advantage in your business. You may have been teased about something in your personality in the midst of your school age years, but that very same thing, and we're going to even look at this as we go into the interviews today, that very same thing that distinguished you, made you different from others, is the thing that's going to put you ahead of them when you get out into this entrepreneurship landscape. Your business identity is an extension of your personality. I don't know if you ever really consider that when you're talking about business, because when you get into these circles, when you start networking, when you start going to classes and seminars about how you can innovate and can increase your business, one of the first questions that you will wrestle with as a business owner when you start leveling up and attending classes is, in operating excellence, what's your niche? That's what they ask you. What's your niche? How do you distinguish yourself from others? What's the distinguishing characteristic that will give you a competitive advantage over someone else? When you go into an industry, let's just say, because we can make it real simple, let's just say it's food. Everybody's serving food. There are lots of companies out there. There are lots of restaurants. There's lots of caterers out there. But what's going to make your chicken Alfredo different from somebody else's? What's going to make your particular pie or cake different from somebody else's other? Listen, lots of people can make cakes. Let's bring it home a little bit more. What's going to make your insurance sales any different from anybody else's? What's the distinguishing characteristic? What's your niche? What's your competitive advantage? Whatever you want to call it, what's that quirky thing about your business that you can use to solve a problem like no one else can? Listen, it can be something silly like throwing rolls. Yes, throwing rolls. I don't know if you've been to the steakhouses or the restaurants where they throw the bread to your table. Literally, throw the bread to your table. And I don't have to tell you that people like stuff like that. People actually like their food being thrown to them. In any other circumstance, they would be offended by it. But because it's the very particular thing about that restaurant, they're willing to tolerate it. I've watched on the Travel Channel where people go to a restaurant to be cussed out by the cashier. Yes, they actually go to a place, I believe it was in New York, that they go to that place because this lady at the cashier, sure, the food is good. I don't hear anybody saying it's exceptional because it was a simple cafe. But they go there. One of the things that draws people to that particular restaurant, they stand in line to be cussed out by the cashier. If you're saying your order too slow, she's going to cuss you out and tell you how to order whatever it is that you came looking for. That's their competitive advantage. That's what distinguishes them from other restaurants, is that they disrespect their customers and people like it. Are you hearing what I'm saying right now? We talk about Henry Ford as well, right? And the industrial age and the things he contributed to the world, even to our society, even today. We talk about that. But do we take into account that Henry Ford was an obsessively organized individual? But something you don't know about me because you may only know me from the screen, but I love to read biographies. I love to read about people, especially successful people, to really get the behind the scenes. That's really the core of this show, is giving you the behind the scenes about business, about entrepreneurship, what makes people tick. Because for me, I sat in so many, under so many speeches and seminars, and I saw all these success stories and the testimonies that they gave about how they got there. And I was always intimidated because I didn't think I could do the same things that they could do, not because I didn't have the ability or the skills, I just didn't feel like I had the opportunity. Until I learned that they were keeping a lot of the story, the details, the important details, at least to me as a vulnerable person, the details were excluded from the discussion about how they received their success. So one of the core reasons we do this show is so that people can understand the struggle that people went through in order to get where they are. Because people who are successful, normally, there are exceptions, but normally people have processes that they had to go through to be developed to become the person that they are. So let's think about this. One of the things, the processes out of Henry Ford's obsessive nature was the assembly line. That's what came out of his mind. That's a quirky detail about his character. He was obsessively organized, but then he used that obsessiveness to create the assembly line. We don't even think about that the assembly line was something that was novel. At one point was not, processes in building things were not done that way. Because even the assembly line concept went beyond just the factory floor. We used the assembly line process and that whole paradigm to begin to break down work even more. We're still breaking down work. I was just having a discussion recently about outsourcing certain processes even in the insurance business with a friend of mine. That's because we've learned how to segment certain parts of work. Because prior to that, just in reference to Henry Ford and building a vehicle, there was one mechanic and engineer that built the entire vehicle. This wasn't a one-off vehicle necessarily. No, this was a vehicle for a company. Let's just say it was the Ford company, and there was mechanics that were trained to build Ford vehicles, but that one mechanic assembled the engine, the transmission, the blowers, the air intakes, everything about that vehicle, tires, put the tires on, seats, everything about that vehicle was done by that one person. And there are still some companies, car companies, luxury car companies in particular, that still have that same model. But Henry Ford was able to bring the price down for the production of a vehicle by creating the assembly line. He segregated the work. He broke down the work. So if you were the engine guy, he created an engine guy. One guy assembled the engine. One person or one or two people assemble the interior. One or two people assemble the transmission. Everybody has a different part in the organization to bring together the entire whole, creating a team concept in regards to building large vehicles. Of course, though, that same paradigm worked its way into the organizational skills and the paradigms and the management practices we have in business today. We learn how to segregate work, right? We also learn some pitfalls of that particular mindset because people need to be able to collaborate as well. There's some things that people need to own. In some places, in ways that the assembly line doesn't work. That's something that we have learned over the years. But it all came out of the obsessive nature, organizational nature of Henry Ford. So I'm asking you again, what is it that is in you that makes you different, right? That you can use to be the distinguishing thing in your business. I can tell you about myself and my business. So my mother, I remember as a young child, my mother having parties, right? And she would be the person at the party, not necessarily dancing and having fun, but she was the person that was hosting. She found joy in hosting. She found joy in curating the experience. So what did she do? But that was part of her personality. She's just a servant. That's who she is. If you go to her house, she's going to wait on you hand and foot. She's an awesome business person and sales lady, but she also likes to serve. So a core of our business is that we do great customer service. We do great follow-up. That's a quirk of the personality in our business. It also gives us a competitive advantage because guess what? A lot of insurance agents don't follow up with their clients. And that's how we're able to get business and get referrals and build a reputation of those that care about people in the community because we follow up with them and we stay in touch with people. It's just that simple. It's a quirk in your personality that's going to give you a competitive advantage. We're going to explore that even deeper as we go into our interviews. We're looking forward to every single one today. I need you to stay tuned. You're watching Street MBA.
Are you a small business owner who's overwhelmed and exhausted? You've tried many strategies, but your business just isn't where you want it to be. You wish someone would give you a roadmap to grow your business so that you can finally live the life you've imagined. Now is the time to get crystal clear on your business strategy so that you can work smarter, not harder. With our support, you can fully step into your CEO role and run your business rather than your business running you. Hi, I'm Jen Drago, award-winning strategist and business coach. I help entrepreneurs and small business owners develop a laser-focused roadmap so that they can earn more, work fewer hours, and amplify their impact. Let's face it, most of the small business advice that's available online is cookie cutter and filled with fluff that will never serve you. It's time for you to stop doing things that aren't moving your business forward. I will help you develop an actionable, focused plan to grow your business in a way that lights you up. Contact me today at peaktoprofit.com to get started on your business growth roadmap.
Hi, my name is Elias Basabe, founder of Little Maria's Cafe Restaurant in West Houston, located in 2901 Wilkers Drive, Suite 137, first floor. Here you will find a family-friendly and relaxed environment where you can enjoy a delicious homemade breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We know you need to get to work fast, and we want you to enjoy a tasty, quality, and healthy homemade food. So come and visit us for a great nutritious meal at an affordable price. We specialize in tasty breakfasts, deli sandwiches, fish, even barbecue cookouts. Little Maria's Cafe has it all. We only use the great quality of Boar's Head meats and products. Just like you, we love to get you up early. Little Maria's Cafe is open from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can dine in with us during breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or we can have it ready for you for pickup. Visit us today on the first floor of the CMPC Center at 2901 Wilkers Drive, Suite 137, first floor. Order now at 832-667-8376, Little Maria's Cafe.
Welcome back to Street MBA. Listen, I tell y'all all the time because every single person that comes on here is a blessing to me because they literally volunteer to come on the show and share their ideas and share the wealth of knowledge that they have. So I'm so happy. This is genuine happiness because this is somebody I went to high school with. And even when we were in high school, I looked up to this guy because of the greatness that he showed on the football field and even as his character as he walked around school. I'm saying this right now, he wasn't prepared for it, but that's the real deal. So I got A.J. Johnson here with me. Listen, I'm not going to discuss his accomplishment because he can discuss for himself. Welcome, AJ, to the show. My first question to you is, how in the world did you end up to be a farmer's insurance agent?
Man, Jonathan, I appreciate you having me, man. Like you mentioned, this is over 20 years of friendship, man, and
Yes,
love
sir.
and admiration for each other, man, and I support everything you do, so thank you for having me on. Man, I get that question a lot, right? So I was fortunate and blessed enough to play football at the highest level in the NFL and in Canada, and that dream comes to an end one day. It's never expected, but it does come to an end one day.
Here, so my curious mind, I would like to know because I heard a very staggering stat about the longevity of people in the NFL and how long they normally were in the NFL. So can you share with us what that stat is and how long was your career in the NFL?
So literally less than 1% of the folks that play football, I think from high school to college, get a chance to make it, right?
Okay.
31, 32 NFL teams, and you have a 53-man roster. I didn't get drafted. And the average career is about 3 years. I was
Whoa,
fortunate
whoa,
enough
whoa.
to play 7.
3 years.
3 years, man, and you think about that.
So wait a minute. So the average person isn't like Tom Brady.
No.
That's been in the league for decades, literally. But you're talking about just 3 years? I heard that stat before too. I'm just making sure our audience understands what we're talking about. That 3 years is the average length of a career for an NFL player.
That's it. And you think about that in anything that we do in our everyday life. 3 years in any other industry, you're just scratching the surface.
Absolutely. You haven't really you don't really know your industry once you're 3 years. They say you have to be at least 5 to 10 years before you really can say that you're a real master at what you're talking about, what you're doing.
But one thing about the NFL, man, these are highly skilled individuals and they are exceptional athletes, and that's the reason why Tom Brady and even in the NBA, LeBron and those guys can play at such a high level for so long. Everything that you do is calculated, from your diet, your sleep habits, your nutrition, your workout habits, and that has to prolong your career. So we had a saying in the locker room, man, just try to stay on scholarship, just try to get invited back. And I took the journeyman's route. I didn't get drafted. I went to SMU. We didn't play on TV a lot.
Okay.
But man, I think
but you was fast.
Yeah, and that's I've been undersized receiver for a long time, and all I knew was hard work, man, and so that allowed me to continue to stay on scholarship.
All you knew was hard work. If this was a YouTube show right now, that would flash across the screen. All you knew was hard work. So in order to be who you were becoming at the time, right, because we know that your football life was just a minuscule portion of your actual existence. Right, but some of the things that was instilled in you, I would imagine, prior to football, was all you know is hard work. Listen, that's not a common saying right there, sir.
Correct.
That's going to distinguish you right there.
Absolutely. And so you talk about how I got into the business. Once I got released from the Texans, this was 2005. I realized that my window was closing. Right. I knew I could still play, but it's not as easy as walking over to a facility and say, "Hey, give me a chance." It's not like a normal job interview.
Okay.
They have to want you, and you have to have a unique skill set that allows you to stick around. At that time, I was in transition, and I started interviewing. I had my degree in MIS from SMU, and you listen to the crowd. And
okay. Well, what is MIS?
Management Information Systems. So
what would you do with that type of a degree?
Man, I thought I was going to be programming websites, database control, and things like that.
A.J. Johnson, the football player?
That was it, man. My mother said, you going to play football, but you going to get a degree, right?
Okay.
And so both of my parents are in education. My dad is still a professor at Prairie View.
Okay.
And so it was no shortcuts, but, and they made it very clear. You can do this on Saturdays in the fall, but that degree is coming. And so I remembered that, and I carried that with me. And so I wanted to get a degree in something that interests me. That's so important, especially these days.
Okay.
But if you can remember back then, the tech boom in 2000 and things like that.
Right. But you were talking about building websites back in 96, 97.
Correct.
And that wasn't really a thing. I remember we used to go to the library. I feel quite privileged that we went to the high school we went to.
Yeah.
Because we had access to the internet before a lot of people even knew what it was in our little library down there. So, but where did the interest get piqued in regards to websites all the way back in the early 90s?
I got into the business school, Cox Business School at SMU, and you try to start thinking, what can I do with my life after I get out of here? And it was just fun to me, trying to create things, actually having things that can be living 24/7. I got a little peek of the marketing deal, took some finance classes. I said, man, everybody's going to go in. So I'm around all these highly intelligent, business-minded folks, and I said, man, they're all going to want to advertise their business somewhere. Wow. They got this beautiful thing called the internet. How can I help them get?
So you're thinking of solutions.
Absolutely. So that's what got me peaked in MIS. And so you learn, JavaScript and coding and things like that, how to write print statements. And so you fast forward, I got fortunate enough to play in the NFL. Well, I started in Canada. I didn't get drafted, so I went to a free agent workout, went to Canada.
Okay.
And 2 years there, or 1 year there, came down to the NFL, bounced around a little bit, faced some adversity. I tore my ACL, both of them, in Miami. But came.
Wow, as a Dolphin, as a Miami Dolphin.
Miami Dolphin.
Okay. Did you ever start? Did you ever get out in the field before you injured yourself?
So the first year I was there, I had a lot of success the first year in Canada. That would afforded me the opportunity. You know, Rookie of the Year, Special Teams Player of the Year.
Come on, man. You was gonna let it slide past and then tell us you made Rookie of the Year in Canada?
You know, man, again, it's hard work. I went there on a free agent workout, and I just said I don't want to come home yet.
Yeah.
You know?
And went from free agent, walk on, to Rookie of the Year, the whole league.
Absolutely.
Come on,
and
man.
So the Dolphins gave me a chance, and man, I was so excited, and started realizing I had a chance to make the team. And I tell you, we talk about business minded and being frugal. Not a flashy guy. Was never like that. I rented an apartment literally across the street from the facility, and I walked there for about the first 3 or 4 months in the off season because, you know, I wasn't gonna buy a car, I wasn't gonna buy a house. I didn't know if I was gonna be there, and I wasn't.
So you was living in Miami and didn't even bother to buy a car?
Not yet. And so tore my ACL about 2 days before the first preseason game, and that was in practice, non-contact, and devastated, man. I mean, I literally 22 years old, 23 years old, called my dad, man. I was just crying, and so he said, man, you gonna come back? What you got to do? Do what you got to do. And so rehab, came back, man, and at that point, I knew I had the skills to play in that league.
So where'd you go in during the midst of your rehab? So you had to really uproot yourself, make some changes.
Well, you stay there. So
you
again,
stayed there in rehab.
it's
Okay.
a big business. They pay you to stay there. I got put on injury reserve, so I was afforded the best medical doctors and treatment. I was able to work out with the team for that remainder of the year and stayed there in the off season. And I think it was a blessing in disguise because I got to view what it was like to be a pro. I watched these guys every day prepare for games. I watched these guys take care of their body. I watched these guys study in the film room. And so I had a chance to kind of look at that. And I came back with a whole different mindset the next year. Made the team, right? And was a starting punt returner. And about halfway into the season, we're in a punt return to kick in Kansas City. I got hit, man, tore my other ACL. And there we go again, devastated. I'm like, man, this is over.
Wow.
Right? We talk about the 3 years, right?
Right.
I'm 1 in Canada,
Right.
2.5 or 1.5 in the NFL in Miami. Got cut, but I got signed by the Jets. And so kept going. But we fast forward, and I know now this
When did you buy a car?
Yeah, so I made that team. So here's the story there, man. And then again, a lot of my friends will witness this. I drive around, man. I go to the BMW dealership. I go to the Mercedes dealership, and I start looking at these car notes, and I'm like, man, you know, all right, $900, you know, $700. I said, man, that's kind of, I got it, but man, I don't want to put that on the car, right?
Right. Listen, you were a sober young man.
And so
look, a lot of young men, if they had it in their bank account, they spending it.
Nah, man, hey, look, man.
So you had a pretty solid foundation going into there. You've already mentioned your parents a couple of times, so obviously they played a role of mentorship in your life. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, man. So again, my dad was a coach, right? He coached at Prairie View, coached at TSU, and so I was around athletes a lot. My mom worked at Houston Community College, 41 years, the only job I ever known her to have. And so I saw two parents get up and go to work every day. You know what I mean? And then I saw my dad put in the time and what it took to be a college football player, at least from what the guys that he was coaching. So I was around highly competitive people, man, at a young age. And then, you know, we went to the best high school in the nation. Right. And so we competed in the classroom, on the field, and we had teachers and educators that pushed us, man. So I just carried that mentality throughout life, and man, you can't allow yourself to make excuses, man. You just got to find solutions for what you want to do in life.
So have you brought that competitive spirit and the competitive edge into your business at all?
Yeah. So you talk about this, man. When I got cut from the Texans, I had an opportunity to potentially go back and play in Canada, which I did. I ended up making the decision to go back and play. At the same time, I took my insurance training because I was starting to interview, and nobody wanted to really give me a job that I thought I was going to have fun at, right? I was looking for an entry-level help desk job at that point. But you're talking about...
still think about MIS?
Absolutely. But I'm 6 or 7 years, maybe 8 years removed from actual classroom and coding, right? So they all wanted me to go back to school. And I said, nah, I'm not. I'll guarantee you give me a job, man, I'm going to be the best one you have on the team. I wasn't prepared to go back to school. I didn't want to move my family. I didn't want to do that, right? I want to spend time with my family and be at home. So I got a call from a headhunter, insurance guy in Bay City, Texas, and I said, man, I'm not working in Bay City, but I knew nothing about it. Didn't know you could work anywhere with an insurance license. took my test, got licensed, both of them right off the bat. Probably 6 months later, I got my securities license. And then May of that year, I go back and play football in Canada.
Okay.
Now, technology background.
Okay, so wait a minute now. How many times have I seen the story about how somebody came back and they called them back up and they were selling insurance?
Yeah, right.
So I think I've asked you this before, but of course not on camera. You know, how does that happen that so many athletes end up in the insurance industry? What is the correlation? Where does that come together at?
Well, the competition, number one, and I think you're used to betting on yourself. I've been around, and I try to surround myself with highly competitive people.
Okay.
In the insurance business, there's no magic trick, right? Insurance is heavily regulated. The products are what they are. The state sets the guidelines for the most part. Your company just sets out a set of rules, and you just need to follow them. At that point, we got to put in systems. And so I took what I knew from building teams and being on teams into my business. So I understood the VoIP technology, and I kid you not, we can call any one of my teammates, we can call my coach in Canada. I would go to practice.
All right.
8 a.m., 7:30, I'm in the facility. In Canada, it's a little bit more relaxed. It's not as tough as the NFL as far as the workload. I'm out of practice probably around 1 or 2 o'clock. I'm on the phone back in Houston. I'm in Winnipeg, Canada, playing and practicing football.
Trying to sell insurance in Houston.
I'm on the phone after practice. And these guys will say, man, AJ, what? He going to work. You're right, because I don't know when this is going to end, but I need to start preparing and building my brand back home, so when it does, it's a smooth transition. I don't want to go back home.
You a young man. You're talking about building a brand. You're talking about setting up longevity and legacy and moving forward. Man, there's another detail that you haven't shared with my audience, and I want to give you some time to do so. So we're coming right back. We're going to go dive a little bit deeper with Mr. Johnson, Mr. A.J. Johnson, former NFL player, insurance man, entrepreneur, and we have another title we're going to slap on his forehead in just a second. When we come back, keep on watching Street MBA.
Hi, I'm Mike Mogel, the CEO of Clean Sweep Office Cleaning. A clean and disinfected space essential to keeping your customers and your staff healthy, safe, and productive while preventing the spread of COVID-19. Clean Sweep Office Cleaning, with more than 20 years experience in janitorial, restaurant, post-construction, and floor maintenance cleaning. We really make it shine. We are focused on quality cleaning and wellness in our customer spaces. Our team is professionally trained to ensure not a spot is missed, and we use products that are safe for your property and your people. Our services are tailored to your individual needs and include expert floor care, dusting, sweeping, mopping, vacuuming, detailing, glass cleaning, and deep disinfecting. Our experienced team is here to make your office as comfortable and clean as possible. Visit our website at cleansweepofficecleaning.com or call us today at 832-689-7996. Now that's a clean sweep.
Welcome back to Street MBA. We're talking about Mr. A.J. Johnson, his path to entrepreneurship and where he is today. He almost got away from me real quick. What kind of car? Because you mentioned you went to the BMW dealership and you was looking at the car notes and all that good stuff. What kind of car did you eventually decide upon to purchase for your first vehicle purchase with your NFL salary?
Yeah, so I recalled heavily my finance and economics classes back at SMU.
Oh, this not sounding good right here.
I'm driving around Miami and I'm looking at all these vehicles, but I saw a commercial for Volkswagen.
Now, mind you, if you've never been to Miami, there's Lambo. If you at least on South Beach, there's Lambos, Ferraris, luxury vehicles all over the place. On the Tuesday afternoon, they lined up on Ocean Avenue at the cafes, eating good and driving their fancy cars. And here you are, NFL, Miami Dolphin, and you purchased a
Volkswagen Passat. and the guys,
wait a minute.
They laughed at me so hard, man. But I knew if I got cut, I could make that car note. You know what I mean? I could go get a job and I could make that car note. And before people say, man, NFL guy, the guaranteed money that you see now was not the same when I was playing. And again, I was not a high-profile athlete. I was on minimum contracts, and people say, oh, well, the minimum, you were making $300,000 a year, you're right. But when you talk about a 45% tax bracket, right? You talk about just regular living expenses. I was in an apartment. $300,000, yes, I'm not, shying away from it. It's a significant amount of money. But at the same time, if you're spending $1,000 a month on a car, if you're spending another $2,000 or $3,000 on a house, that money is not what you think it is. And the day you get cut is the last day you get a paycheck. And so.
Oh, so there's no severance pay.
No. Especially if you hadn't reached the 3-year mark, right? All benefits and everything kick in once you hit that mark. And so they've done some things now to try to improve that from a collective bargaining agreement, and we don't have to get into all that. But the premise of it is, I knew if I had gotten cut, I can make that car note on that Volkswagen Passat. Man, I took it, man. I put me some tint on that thing, and it was good, man.
You say you threw some tint on that Passat?
Yeah.
You ain't throw no rims on it?
No. I kept it factory. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: going beyond your NFL career, and now you got your series. So you were doing a thing in Canada at the same time, building your insurance business. So you taking your competitive nature. You're in the Farmers Insurance Agency now, and tell us how your journey has been. What's some of the struggles that you've had being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, man, it was tough because I would go to all these seminars and you listen to all these highly successful agents and you try to emulate what they were doing and plug and play. But man, I just kept getting drawn back to, this is not rocket science. Don't make it harder than what it is.
Okay.
I know football and I know teams and I knew in a football arena, you have a general manager, you have a head coach, you have an offensive coordinator, defense coordinator. And literally, this show is great timing, man, because I'm 17 years into my business.
Okay.
And about 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with my staff, or my team. I don't even call them staff, my team.
Right.
And I sort of changed their titles to football terms. And
really?
People say, oh, man, that's elementary. Why did you dumb it down? No, I needed to speak the language that I know so I can effectively train them to get accomplished what we need to accomplish. Big learning curve, man. Hurricane Ike hit about the time that I retired. And I was not aware in the insurance business, when a major catastrophe comes through, they shut down your writing privileges, right? So meaning you can't add any new business to your portfolio or to the books, if you will, until the storm is cleared and then things are back to normal.
Okay.
Well, you have a team that expects to get paid.
Absolutely.
It's not their fault that a hurricane came through. And so luckily, budgeting wise, I was prepared, but I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. So that was learning lesson number one.
Okay.
Because we live on the coast and they don't teach you those things in your classes, right? You got to go through some of that.
That's something you learned in the midst of doing business, that you need to have a reserve fund just for payroll.
Absolutely.
In order to be able to cover payroll, because we've discussed it before, and we already know payroll is the highest line item just about every single business. Health insurance is number 2. So that's a whole nother conversation. We don't want to get too far in the weeds about insurance, but I do want to get in the weeds a bit about how you got into the political arena.
Man, it's I don't consider myself a politician in the least bit, but I also know I'm called to serve, man. And if I have the ability to help, that's what I was put here to do. Insurance just happens to be the vehicle that I'm allowed to do that with, right? Man, I bet on myself every day. And once I got involved in the school system with my kids, as far as Booster Club president and everything, that's the only thing I know how to do. If I'm going to help, I'm going to help. There's no reason for me to sit back and complain about anything. And we moved our kids to Alvin ISD for the school system, for the sense of family, allowing them to do whatever they wanted to do. My kids were in band, they were in athletics, highly academic. And so I wanted to be a part of that. And the school district is growing. And I had some friends that encouraged me to maybe throw my name in the hat, and I had nothing to lose, right? My business is going well. I was going to continue to do that. I said, why not? This is something new. As an athlete, you get put in situations that you can't predict. It snows one game, it's raining one game, somebody gets hurt, you got to go up and maybe play a different position.
Right.
If anything else, it was going to teach me a little bit more about our education system, how to work with people in the public school system, and at the end of the day, somebody did it for us, man. Somebody did it for us at Willow Ridge. Somebody did it for us in Fort Bend ISD. And it was just time for me to try to participate in that arena.
So what exactly did you do, and what position did you go for?
So you call it a team of 8, right? There's 7 board trustees, and then you're the superintendent. So we work together as a team.
Okay.
quite
So
often.
you're on the school board?
Absolutely, in Alvin
Okay.
ISD. Yeah.
Okay, so you were an elected official or you were appointed to the school board?
Elected. Yeah, I had to run a campaign.
Oh, so
yeah,
you actually had to get out there, put yourself out there, shake some hands, slap some
Yes.
backs, as I like
knock
to
on
say.
doors. All of
Okay,
that.
you
Yeah.
did all that
Yeah,
to actually become a school board member.
correct. And
Congratulations. So you listen, that's not something. So I always like to qualify things because when you think about it, people look at people. Because I had another gentleman, and he's going to be on the show today as well. He actually had some football experience. He played D1, but he never went to the professional level. And I also had another person who actually played D1 as well. She played volleyball. She's a doctor today. There's a certain, people don't really understand, because you mentioned it a little bit about when you got that opportunity when you were injured to observe the level of detail, the level of work that it requires to be a professional football player, right? So that also instilled in you another level of work ethic to go even harder. But people don't really get it. Those of us who've never been on that level of team. Now, I've been on that level of team in regards to schooling, in regards to business and things of that nature, but I've never been. So we as observers or spectators, we can assume some things about the people because we look at ourselves, right? And we say, well, I don't have to do that much necessarily, so I can't see why it would require so much for that other person. But when we really explore the lives and look at the everyday discipline it requires to function on that type of level, the average person doesn't have it in them, is my point.
And that's what separates a lot of folks, man. There's no, listen, again, we went to high school with some super talented people.
Absolutely.
I was not the best player on the team, and we all went our separate ways in college. I was not the best player on my college team. Was not the best player on my professional team. But I played with Ricky Williams, Andre Johnson, Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas.
Yeah.
These guys were Aaron Glenn. He's got Chad Pennington, Curtis Martin, Hall of Fame. These guys are Hall of Fame NFL. Pat Surtain, his son is in the league. These guys are Hall of Fame players that I practice with every single day. But again, I just had to work. I just had to keep showing up, keep proving my worth, and imagine. And I try to. It's hard to emulate and duplicate in an everyday work setting because the pressure is not there, right?
Absolutely.
You do a bad job in the NFL, you're getting cut. And there is no hard. You got a one-way ticket to wherever you want to go. But you mentioned something earlier, that it factor, and that's what we call it. You either got it or you don't.
Yeah.
And me going into that school board seat was something that I couldn't continue to go out into the public and talk to these high school kids about challenging themselves or doing something better or elevating their minds. And I didn't do it myself. So I allowed myself to go on public display. And I was prepared, win, lose, or if I won or lost, right? But I had to show it wasn't about just me getting that seat or being in that position. I had to show kids that if you want to do something, just go do it.
Just go do it.
And
Set
be
your mind
okay.
to go do it and be okay with it. So
Yes.
before we go, I want to make sure everybody can be able to contact Mr. A.J. Johnson, school board member, out there at Alvin ISD. How can they contact you, do business with you in the future, sir?
Man, we'd love to help you out. My office is in Pearland. We're licensed in several states across the country. My phone number is 281-412-6690. You can also visit us online at www.ajinsuresme.com. That's AJINSURESME.com. We're on all social media that way as well. Happy to chat, man. You know, whether we do business together or not, the purpose of you calling my office for some advice is that we're going to give it to you, good, bad, or indifferent, and hopefully help you make an educated decision about your investments, your life insurance, your home and auto. We have a team of folks that care about you and want to make sure that you're covered. And if we can help, we'd love to do so. If not, hopefully we give you some good answers to help you along your way.
Well, you heard it right here. You got Mr. A.J. Johnson. He's a farmer's insurance franchise. He's an entrepreneur. He's a coach. He's a leader. He's a school board member out there in Alvin ISD, and he wants to continue to help the community. And please avail yourself of his services. Stay tuned. We got more here on Street MBA. Keep on watching.
Hello, my name is Colleen Meagle and I'm an attorney. Let's talk business. Do you have a business that you want to buy or sell? It's crucial to get an attorney involved sooner rather than later in any sale process, because the moment that documents are signed, your leverage goes right out the window. So make sure that you get what you really want and protect yourself in the process. So if you're looking to sell, let's talk. I've handled acquisitions for Fortune 200 companies and helped numerous business owners discover how a great lawyer is a partner in a transaction, guiding you through the process and preventing you from making mistakes that can cost you thousands. My goal is to provide my clients with focused, cost-effective, yet practical legal solutions. So let me help you with your legal needs. Call me today, 713-300-9662.
Welcome back to Street MBA. Listen, I got a great guest for you guys today. Some people call him a DJ, some people call him an entrepreneur, some people call him husband. But guess what? We call him Adam Nelson, and he's on Street MBA today to talk about his podcast that's blowing up. It's called Culturally Distinct. So let's jump right into it. I introduce you to everybody, Mr. Adam Nelson. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing absolutely great. So, you have a great podcast. We want to talk about how you got into podcasting, but first, what is Culturally Distinct all about?
So, Culturally Distinct, the name originated from, we had a couple of friends from my university. I went to HBCU, Southern University. And,
Okay.
So, the culture side of it, the name, the culture side came from that, but the distinct side of it came from distinctions within our culture. You know, going to HBCU, we have different individuals that come from different walks of life, and majority of them are of one race. So that was a distinction. So we just called it Culturally Distinct, and it stuck.
So is the podcast about life at Southern or being in college or something like that? What exactly are you guys hitting on? And is it basic content that you talk about, or what exactly is the podcast about?
Well, see, the podcast is basically it's an empowerment session for us as individuals.
Okay.
I call it a church on TV. You know, some people have a physical church, what they call church. I call it the podcast a pulpit, because basically what we do, we try to educate our community in different ways that's positive, where individuals could leave with something to learn from.
Okay, so, see, listen, man, so that's why I had you on the show, because we got the same heart and the same spirit. What you just said describes Street MBA. That's the ethos of Street MBA. But let me ask you this. There's a million people. I'm probably not exaggerating when I say there's a million people out there, because it's trendy to do podcasting right now. So what got you into the game of podcasting?
Well, actually, you know, it's funny. It's a funny story. Actually, it was a dream that I had. You know,
a dream? You mean a literal dream?
A dream, like some people call it a premonition, some people call it a thought or whatever. It was a dream that I had, and the dream, it was a vivid dream. The dream was like, start a podcast. I had no intention, I had no idea. I just, went off with the dream. I had no idea on equipment, no editing, no nothing with the software, anything. So.
You just got up one morning and went and started buying some equipment because you heard a voice tell you to do a podcast.
Yes. So in doing that,
This obviously wasn't your first endeavor.
No, not at all. As an entrepreneur, you jump in, you're jumping over the cliff,
Yeah.
But this is something that challenged me, it was part of my passion, because I like to talk to people. I like to see what people's backgrounds are. So doing the podcast, I said, okay, well, it's something that's going to challenge me. So that's what it did.
Okay. So you got in there, you bought the equipment, put your little setup, and what happened next?
So funny story, my first show was at my house.
Okay.
In my man cave. The audio was horrible. It was like one of those old Chinese movies.
Yeah.
That the audio was saying one thing and the actions was doing another.
Oh, so you tape your podcast as well?
I did. It was the first
so
one
you're
was
doing video and you're doing audio.
Yes.
all with your podcast. So where's the podcast being housed, or how can you see the podcast?
So it's right now it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all all your streaming locations. But when I first started, it was complicated. It was horrible. Just like any first time person that ever tried to do a podcast, especially a video podcast, they probably went through these same trials and tribulations.
For sure. That's why we have you here, so people don't have to bump their head on some things that's unnecessary, because you can inform them. So in reference to the podcasting game, because listen, like I said, it's trendy, but how does it make sense for somebody to get into podcasting? Is it monetary? Is it just a hobby type thing? What exactly? Because I see a lot of podcasts. I still haven't got into podcasting like that. I'm more into audio books. I like that. So I've yet to really, that's not really true though, because I listen to a lot of talk radio.
Right.
So that's essentially the same thing, because even a lot of the talk radio programs nowadays are recorded and then just played back. But so my question to you is, in reference to being trendy, is it something you think that's something that's going to help to benefit your business, or is it simply a hobby?
Well, I think, the thing is, like, to answer your first question, I think it's more of it's helping individuals out, right? So individuals want to start a podcast because I think that starting a podcast, you first got to have passion in doing it. If you don't have passion in doing so, it's not going to work. If you're doing it directly for money, it's not going to work, because if the money is not coming right now, you're going to be discouraged and you're going to lose hope and lose focus. So first you got to have the passion. So if the passion is there, that's one. Two.
So you said, so in reference to doing a podcast, the first thing you need to do is have passion.
Yes.
I'm just going to interrupt you real quick and just give you a little idea how the show goes.
Okay.
When we grab on a real good point, we're going to make sure we draw it out, because the objective is for people to really get the knowledge that we're sharing here. So again, you say the first thing is you got to have passion. So you can't just be doing this because your cousin doing it and you're in competition with him. That's not a real passion.
Correct.
As far as podcasting. So please continue.
Yeah, so I use the analogy all the time. So it's like sports, right?
Okay.
You see somebody playing sports and you see somebody that is very talented, and you say, well, I could do that. And you go out there and you realize that it's not as easy as it looks.
Listen, you know what you made me think about? I don't know if you remember that old show, Pros versus Joes. Do you remember that show?
Yes.
So all those guys, now some of them guys was, had played semi-pro and some of that stuff, so they was playing retired guys, so he gave them a little competition. But for the most part on that show, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So Pros versus Joes was a show where a regular guy like you and I, who may have had pro aspirations, and now he wants to play, he gets an opportunity to go against Mike Tyson.
Right.
He gets to go against Bo Jackson and Shaquille O'Neal and some of those guys that actually were willing to go on the show in their retirement. And so they would actually compete in the game that these guys were famous, many times were Hall of Famers for, that they would actually compete with these guys, and many times those guys got totally embarrassed, that's what made the show very interesting. But please continue on your point.
Yeah, so once you figure out, okay, well, I could do this, and once you figure out that's your passion, basically when I say passion, it's something that you'll do without anybody watching or anybody telling you to wake you up in the morning. It's just something natural that you do.
Yeah.
So you have that. That's one. Two, you got to have good commentary,
Okay.
A lot of individuals, we, especially in our community, some of us have a problem with, speaking.
Okay,
Speaking is like a phobia in a lot of communities, especially when the camera is on, and especially when someone gives a valid point and you don't know how to respond to it. So it becomes kind of shaky. So you got to learn how to be kind of media trained. That's the second thing. Third, you got to have great content. If you don't have good content, nobody's going to watch it. I could talk about the birds and the bees,
right? But
if nobody's watching it, what's the purpose of it? So, and then at the same time, you got to understand the business side of it. How can I monetize, not just off the streaming side, but how can I monetize on other avenues that can make money off of this production?
You talking money now, baby. We listening. How do you monetize the podcast, please?
So there's multiple things you can do. Okay, outside of YouTube, everybody started off with YouTube,
right?
But YouTube has this algorithm where you got to have 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers just to get monetized, right? Okay. And that's hard. That's kind of difficult.
That's a hard metric we need to make sure
we
get now. You said 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. You said
correct.
Okay, so that's the terminology. Obviously, how many hours people actually watch the video.
Correct.
So there's not enough for them to click on it and to play a little while and they click off. They have to actually minutes that people have actually watched. That's a very good metric I was unaware of. Please continue.
Yeah. So once you that's on YouTube.
Okay.
And they have other platforms like Patreon, which is a subscription base.
Okay.
And you know, some people, if you have great content off, once you build your company up to the point where you have an active listening, you could charge subscription. And not an expensive subscription, like for instance, like a Netflix. You know, Netflix has, well, it started off as what, $7, $9, and what, 11 now is what, 19, 29.
Right.
So they went up.
Right.
But subscription based, so you can start at $5 in a subscription to your VIPs that have exclusive content.
So, but you got to really be bringing it. If somebody gonna pay a monthly fee to listen to you or watch,
Yes.
because can you watch on Patreon as well?
Yes.
So yes, so you can. So do any of the podcasters, just for fun, do they go on OnlyFans because it's the same type of platform?
Same concept. It's the same exact thing. So when you do when you say like OnlyFans, you have specific individuals that can go directly to what they want to watch, and you tailor that information directly to individuals. So I don't know if you ever seen like YouTube. Some individuals have clips.
Right.
They just show clips of the show versus the whole show. So
Teasers,
right. So when you come down to that's how a lot of people get monetized off of that from that way. Another way you get monetized is off of apparel.
Oh yeah, the merch.
Merchandise, right? Some people do hats, especially if you have a cool design, if you have a nice shirt line or whatever, you know, there you go. You could monetize off of that, $20 a shirt or whatever, how much it takes for you to make that shirt. Whatever your profit margin is going to be, you know, that's with you, but you could monetize off that way. Another way you could monetize off of doing public shows, or some people pay for you to come on their show to talk to them. So you can monetize that way.
Talk about your podcast,
or just talk about them.
Period? Right.
It's like public speaking. So some people, if you ever been to a public speaking, some people pay $10,000, $5,000, $2,000 just for hearing certain individuals speak. So that's the same thing with a podcast. Some people just want your podcast presence there to interview them, and they'll pay you for that. So there's different ways to get monetized off a podcast.
That's very, very good information. But we saw something in the with the B-roll that's been going past as we're speaking here on your website about networks. What are those network and subscription levels that you were speaking about on your website there?
Yeah. So Culturally Distinct is not just a brand; it's a network. So the thing is, we partner with multiple individuals that have podcasts or that want to start podcasts. I had Culturally Distinct Sports. I had Champagne Wives. I had another podcast that is no longer Avenue, but I like to join individuals together to where we can come together and make great information together. Good example of that.
So do you have your own hosting platform for the podcast?
Yes.
Oh, man, you on another level. Man, you got to talk about that.
Yeah, so, and all this stuff, it was like I said, this all came in a dream. So as I go on every day, I'm not saying that I know every single aspect about the podcasting part of it, but I understand the business side of it.
Okay.
Right.
But just real quick, though, how do you understand the business side of it? Because we haven't spoken at all about any of your previous endeavors and what you bring into the podcasting realm. So what experience do you bring into this?
Well, I have a background. My background is in kind of entrepreneurship. As we spoke about it earlier, every business that I even get into, my first very business what I got into was a tax business.
The tax business.
The tax business. I had no idea what it was. I just thought it was lucrative.
Okay.
So I had to learn the ins and outs about taxes, tax code, how to manage money, and how to maneuver money. And from there, that's when I learned how to operate business calls.
Okay.
And operating business calls, I realized no matter what business it was, I knew it was certain rules and guidelines that you had to go off of just to, continue to get paid and make sure. That's right. That's right. So, yeah.
Okay. So you understand that you had to, because I had a bookkeeper on here before, and she talked about how she learned and how she got into the bookkeeping game. And one thing that was very pivotal for her was actually writing down and looking at what she spent for a project.
Right.
I mean, just think about that for a minute. How many people don't do that? They have all their numbers in their head, and they're trying to run a business, and somebody asks them about the life of the health of their business, and they're literally saying to themselves, "Well, I think it was, or this or that," but they never actually wrote it down until to tax time, that they actually see how much money and what the health of their business is. So you say you bring in from the tax business somewhat of a bookkeeping background, because you just can't help but be in the bookkeeping when you're talking about taxes.
Right.
You bring that into every single endeavor.
Correct.
that you've ventured out into. So tell me some more about that.
So the first thing in business, you got to understand what a P&L sheet is: profit and loss.
Profit and loss.
Right. How much are you bringing in? How much are you losing? Right. That's how you know if you're being successful at what you're doing or you're not being successful.
Yeah.
Right.
So before you go on, my friend, I hate to interrupt you. I want to make sure everybody knows how they can get not in front of, but how they can view and every opportunity they can to see culturally distinct in what they do. So what can you do? Well, before you do that, because we want to make sure you tag your business and culturally distinct so people can know where they can find the podcast, we're going to come back right after this. So please stay tuned. You're watching Street MBA.
I was recently asked what it means to be a family lawyer. What is family law? Family law is not just about divorce or custody or child support. Family law is about your life. As a family lawyer, I protect your children, your wealth, your future. I don't do this alone. As your attorney, we work as a team to determine your goals and priorities and provide a strategy in an often complex, painful, and confusing time. Whether it's asset protection through pre- or post-marital agreements or fighting to protect your children, I'm here to help. My team and I bring decades of combined experience to support you and your family in all aspects of family and wealth planning, from estate and legacy planning to divorce and child custody issues to representation in complex litigation cases. Take a decisive step. We're here when you're ready. Remember, it's about your life.
Welcome back to Street MBA. Listen, I don't know about you, but this show has been so full of knowledge and that good street talk that we talk about. We're actually out of time, so we're going to have to re-air the rest of that interview with Adam for our next show. But hey, that just lets you know right there, we got a cliffhanger, we got a tease for you, so come on back and watch us again so you can get the rest of that great interview with Adam, because he gives a whole lot more information. He's talking about doing some consulting stuff that I don't even want to tell you about right now. I want to just expose you to it when we get there on next week. So I need you to stay tuned. It's been going on the screen the entire time. Our station identities, you can find us on terrestrial channels. That's with the old school rabbit ears, that digital antenna that they have nowadays. You can find us there. I know a lot of people who do strictly streaming, they use that to get their local news. You can also catch Street MBA every day, 4 o'clock, Monday through Friday. You can also catch us on Roku. If you download the Boxcast app, you can watch us live, Now Media TV, on the Roku. You can also watch us on Roku through the Now Media app as well. All of our shows are housed right there. And of course, you have our YouTube channel, Street MBA. That's the easiest way to find the shows on demand as well. So please stay tuned with us. You got to stick with us. We have more and more great content. We have working on some different segments for the shows to continue to bring you value. We want you to be part of the conversation. So check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe, please. Thank you so much for watching. You're watching Street MBA.
This has been a Now Media Television feature presentation. All rights reserved.